Last week we were talking about commitment, Samaya. And as we were talking about Samaya, we saw that there were two aspects of Samaya. And the first one is the importance of us to keep purely our own commitments, our ability to make a commitment and to remain with it, as a guideline for ourselves. And this is actually something that is truly very, very much important for all of us. Especially what happens is that there are moments in which we truly have clarity in our minds, and there are moments in which we don't. Anyhow, what happens is that why do we make commitments? Why do we need to make commitments? This is one of the main issues. The reasons for that is that we are not always consistent in ourselves. It's quite common that we have contradictions within ourselves. Not that always we are following the same path in the same way. There are moments in which we choose to follow a path, then suddenly something happens. Then suddenly or the external conditions are not the same as we expect them to be, or which by external conditions we mean the people around, the situations, and so on. Or what happens is that at a certain point our mind changes and we start having doubts and we start projecting our own fears and projecting our own jealousy and envy and this and that. And here also comes one theory which, like every day actually, the more I go on, the more clear it becomes for me. This theory that somehow, we all have our own karma and we all have a certain amount of suffering to experience. It is like, because it's very interesting. How do we eliminate, if we are suffering about something, I am suffering because there is the red glass here. And the red glass makes me suffer. How do I eliminate that suffering? Quite easily. Finding another one. If I start now, I take the singing ball and that's my problem, and that's somehow a bigger problem, and I start focusing there, naturally I will forget about the red glass. And even if I don't forget, it will not make me suffer as before. It's like if I shift my suffering from one thing to the other. It's like if we have a certain amount of suffering, and that's what we are supposed to experience at that moment, because that's the karma that we have awakened. That's the karmic cycle that we have awakened. And until we don't conclude that cycle, that's what we are going to be experiencing somehow. That's like somehow the amount of suffering that we have. And when we change the conditions outside, basically what we do most of the times, we just shift our suffering from one thing to another. Okay? So, in a practical way, if we want to stop suffering about something, we just need to find a new problem, You get a new problem, then anyhow, the same suffering will shift from one thing to the other. Okay? That's why this I didn't say in Italian, but I have a theory myself, which I think it quite works. Which is like when there is a problem, and you know how to deal with it quite well, somehow you get used to it, Don't solve it right away. Because what happens is that when you solve it, another one somewhere else will come up. So sometimes you just keep it there, like if you could not solve it. And this will help you not to get new problems coming up. Because somehow we're able to cheat, like we're able to keep it there somehow. But anyhow, the point here is that in a moment that we have our own karmic cycles, it becomes very important. That's why it's so important to do accumulation of merit and purification of negative karma. Because basically, we live in the cycles where we experience the result of the past, of what we have done in the past. And until that karma, that it's already manifest, that does not finish to manifest itself, is not extinguished, we are going to experience that. And how does the karma manifest? Through sensation. The manifestation of karma is through the sensation of pleasure or the sensation of suffering. So what happened basically is that until the moment that a certain karma is not completely extinguished, we will continue to experience that. And in our very practical level, we can see that when we have a certain amount of suffering about something and so on, there is a moment in life where it changes, but for quite a period, we remain with that amount, and then if it's not for one thing, we project it outside, and then we change that, and then we get something else, and we project to that as something else again, So, the point here, one is understanding this, that it's not just changing the conditions around us, it's understanding that we have our own karmic cycles, and somehow we need to go through what we are going through, and that's why we need to accumulate merits and to purify ourselves. And then together with that, what happens also, this is one of the reasons why keeping our samayas is important, because we need to keep our own direction. And the other thing which happens is that, all of us, we all have moments of more clarity and moments of less clarity. And we have moments of doubts. And we have moments in which the mind go in one direction, and then our feelings and emotion or our feelings go in another direction. Let's call the mind and the heart. And this is quite common also. It's quite common for us to have inner contradictions. We are not always with clarity of mind, and we are not like that. We always know exactly what we should do and how we should do, and we are always with complete clarity. I think it's quite common that we do something, we know it's good, but we feel it's better not to do, or we feel it's good and we think it's better not to do. It's quite common that we have this inner struggle. And what happens is that the stronger is the contradiction that we have within what we think and what we feel, the stronger becomes this inner dialogue. This inner dialogue of one trying to convince the other, which is quite tiring. This inner dialogue in which the mind, the logical mind, is trying to convince the feelings, or the feelings are trying to convince the mind. Mind, and by mind I mean the logical mind. Feelings is also mind, but it's like one part trying to convince the other. And what I have seen within myself is that the stronger is this contradiction, the stronger is the inner dialogue. And it's quite tiring, actually. Looks like we are never really in the right place, because while I do something, there is another part of my mind which is saying, no, better not, why you do this, better, maybe you should be doing something else, Then when I go to do the other thing, then the other part of the mind, no, but that's not what you really want, that's not what is good for you, or whatever, okay? It's quite tiring, this whole thing. I could see it very clearly because personally, since I was quite small, I never had many thoughts and I understood this one day talking to my mom, and I said to her not so long ago, some years ago, and I talked to her and I said, look, I think I am a person, I don't think so much, I don't think much. Then she looked at me and she said, no, it's not that you don't think much, you don't have much inner dialogue. She said, since you were a small kid, you were not having a lot of inner dialogue, in the sense that even like you would come back from school, and you were very small, like 4 years old, whatever. And then I would, how was in school? And you would say to me, fine, good. And you didn't need to, explain what happened and how it went and this and that and help to elaborate the things. It was everything quite okay. This is what it was and finished, And somehow it's true, I have very little this inner dialogue. But because I don't have much of inner dialogue, I could see very clear in the moments that it appeared. How it appeared and how it went away. So when did the inner dialogue appear and when did it get stronger? In whatever moment there was contradiction, conflict, between what I thought and what I felt. Then in the moment that between the thought, the thinking, and the feeling, when they create harmony again, then the inner dialogue fades away. Okay. So, what's the relation of this with commitments? We should take our commitments, our samaya, in the moment where we have clarity, where the thoughts and the emotions are in the same direction, where we don't have this inner strong discussion about I do or I don't do, or go or I don't go. When actually inside, there is harmony. We feel harmony, we have clarity. In the moments of clarity, of inner harmony, that's when we make a commitment, because that's when we have clear really what we need. Then we say, okay, that's what is good for me. That's what is not good for me. This is what I want. And then we give to ourselves this direction. And once we give this direction to ourselves, then we can actually keep that commitment, because at sooner or later the conditions will change outside, our mind will change something and we will react differently, another thought will come, then incoherence will be there, conflict will be there, but we know what is the right direction to follow. That's where the commitment is there to protect us, is there to show us which is the right way for us to follow. Okay? But this is a very important thing, this inner dialogue. We need to be able how to deal well with this inner dialogue that we have. And so the commitment is one of the things that help us with that also, because it shows us a way and we stick to that way. Okay? Well then. So, one more thing. How do we deal with this inner conflict that happens within our thoughts and our feelings? Okay. I will tell you just something which is based on my own experience, which for me it works. I don't know for you, but for me, somehow it worked in this way. I tend to see the feelings and the emotions, if we make a metaphor, imagine that we need to go to live with a person that we don't like. Okay? Let's say like in the monastery, every 2 years, in the monastery where I was in Sera, every 2 years, everyone needed to change. Everyone that didn't have a private room that he built by himself, that was staying in the premises of the monastery, you had your own room that you bought or you build yourself, is something different. Otherwise, everyone else had to change room every 2 years. And when you change the room, was not like choosing the room. They put the room numbers all in little papers, and then each one go there and take out one paper, and that's your room for the next 2 years. And normally for every room there were 2 numbers, which means 2 people, and you never know who you go to stay with. Because each one will take, there are 2 number 4, whatever, then 2 people will take, and there you need to stay. Unless after the rooms were chosen, then from within everyone, they could choose to exchange room or to exchange roommate also. But otherwise, that's what it was. And it happens sometimes that people get roommates that they don't like so much. No? But let's imagine we get a roommate with whom we need to stay a very long time and so on. We have no choice about it, but we really don't go along with that person. We really don't like, and so on and so on. There we have 2 possibilities. Or we learn how to go along, or we continue to, or we remain in conflict. So, we need to find the best way, And the best way is learning how to go along, learning how to respect each other, how to find some minimal balance. It's similar also to one concept which is more strong, but it's also somehow connected to this, which is when we have pain, the pain brings 2 types of suffering. There is the physical suffering of the pain, and then there is the mental suffering, which comes by not accepting the pain, by being in conflict with the pain. And then there is the fear of the pain, and then it makes it much worse, actually. Like I had a friend that she already passed away. She had a very strong sickness, and it would bring her very bad pain, that even morphine was not helping truly. It was helping a little bit, but was not solving at all. So one of the things that helped her, sure it did not solve everything, but it helped her, was to learn to make friendship with the pain. What it means to make friendship with the pain. There is a saying which says, if you cannot destroy your enemy, make him a friend. So, the pain is there. I cannot eliminate it. I would love to stop the pain. I would love to eliminate the pain, but I cannot do it. So I will stop fighting against it. I will take the medicine. I will do what is necessary, but I will just try to relax within the pain. I will stop fighting against it. And this allows the person to somehow relax, even though there is a situation which is not good. No? Because our tendency is that when there is a conflict, we think that to pacify the conflict, one must overcome the other. But that's exactly not the truth. Okay? So when we have our inner conflict between our thoughts and our emotions, our feelings, normally what we try to do to pacify it, one must convince the other. Normally we think that one must convince completely the other. And actually it's not that. The way to pacify our inner conflicts is by actually creating harmony, by generating friendship between what we think and what we feel. When we talk about friendship, I don't know the etymology of the word friend in English, but in Italian it's coming from the Latin, and amico, it's coming from the etymology of the word amare, which is to love. And it's the same thing in Sanskrit, where the word friend is mitra, and it's coming from the word in Sanskrit maitri, which is love. So a friend means someone that loves us. Or to be a friend means to love the person. What means to love in this context? It means to take that obsession with self-gratification, that strong force that we all have, that is the wish to be happy and not to suffer, and we direct that same wish that we have for myself, I want to be happy, I direct also to the other person, I also want you to be happy. And that's by how we love the person, that's how we dedicate that, and we love the other person. And this is actually giving us connection with the other person. It's from love that we develop respect. Truly speaking, it's very difficult to respect someone if there is no love. If we do not respect the person's happiness, how can we truly love the person? Okay? And once there is love and there is respect, even there are contradictions, even there are different ways of thinking and different ways of doing, there starts to be mutual respect, and there starts to be the possibility of creating harmony between both. Okay? And this is something that is actually very, very important. So, from within our own mind, from within our own thoughts of the thoughts and the feelings, one of the things to do is to start one accepting the other, one respecting the other. And then as we start one to respect the other, we will say, okay, today I follow you, tomorrow I follow the other. And then slowly, slowly one start, okay, in this issue, better to follow you, in this issue, better to follow the other. And then slowly, slowly, we are able to create some sort of balance in between the two. Okay? Up to a moment where we feel like there is only one. We have a feeling like if there would be no more difference between the two, actually. If we analyze, we will still find some differences, most probably. But if we feel like one because there is deep respect between each other. Okay? So by that, we can pacify. So what does this connect with commitments? Is that in the moment where we have a balanced state, we should make a commitment to direct ourselves. And then this will help us to keep that way. Because, all of us, we need to control our minds. If we just follow everything that comes to our thoughts, if we just do everything that comes to our mind, then we do stupid things. So we need to have a guidance, we need to have direction, we need to have control. And what is giving us that is the Samaya, is the commitment, which is also giving us this direction, is also giving us this commitment. Okay? So, the next aspect about Samaya, the next aspect about commitment, is actually when the word Samaya is used in a different context, which means to keep our relation pure. And this brings us to another aspect. How do I develop commitment? I cannot commit myself to something if, first of all, I do not aspire it. So in order to have commitments, I need to have aspiration. I need to have desire for it. In order to have aspiration, I must believe in it, that it's possible, it's real, it's beneficial. In order to believe, I must know it. So I need to be introduced to it. So here it comes the importance on the spiritual path of our own spiritual guide. Because in order for me to put effort on the path to enlightenment, I must first aspire that path to enlightenment. In order for me to aspire that path to enlightenment, I must first believe that it is possible. I must believe in it. In order for me to believe, I must know what it is about. If I don't know what it is about, how can I believe in it? So I need to be introduced to it. And here comes the importance of our spiritual guide, our gurus, the one that will introduce us to the path. But in order for me to be introduced to something, to the path, in a correct way, I must have a good connection with the one that is introducing it to me. Otherwise, I'm not truly able to follow and to develop faith and aspiration and then effort and so on. So as it is said in the teachings of Lamrim, the root of the path to enlightenment is to rely correctly upon our spiritual guide. It's not saying that the route to the path is the actual physical person of the guru. The root of our path is relying correctly upon the guru. Because when I rely correctly upon, I am introduced correctly to the path and I believe in it, then I aspire it, then I put effort into it. So, based on this, what we have is that keeping the commitments pure, it's something very important. And in this context, what it means by to keep the commitments pure, what it means to keep the pure Samaya, it's when between two people the relationship is pure. It's when between two people there is no any interference in the relationship. And this is extremely important, okay? It's not obvious, it's not always there, but it's something that is extremely important when there is this purity in the relation. Let's make one example. Let's say two people need to work together, okay? If between the two persons there is respect, if between the two persons the Samaya is pure, which means there is no interference in the personal level of relation, if there is harmony, even if there are difficulties related to the actual practical work, the solutions are found easily. It's not a big deal. One help the other, teach each other, whatever, we find the solutions. If between the two persons the relationship is not really good, there is no real harmony, there is no real respect between each other, then the conflicts raise and get more and more the conflicts between each other, then there will be problems where problems don't exist. Then there will be conflict where actually there is no reason where to be conflict even. Then even the work way, it will become very difficult, everything. So, same thing happens in a relationship between two persons. When there is true harmony, things that supposedly could be a problem are not a problem. When there is no harmony between the two, when the Samaya is not pure, when the connection is not pure, then even where there is no need for conflict, conflict arises. Where there is no need for problem, problem arises. Okay? This is when there is that. So, how do we eliminate these inner interferences in a relationship, which can be friend, job, whatever, intimate relationship, or highly our guru-disciple relationship? How do we clean away our interferences? Because they may arise. It's normal, it's common in any type of relationship. First of all, it's not by pressing the finger into the conflict that the conflict will be pacified. Because normally we have the tendency when there is an interference, okay, I think in a way, you think in another, we have fought. So what I try to do, I try to convince you, you try to convince me. And then there we go. And normally this just makes the conflict to get stronger, just makes this interference to get bigger. The basis to eliminate an interference between two persons is to find and to put energy into a common ground. And basically, normally, this common ground must be a ground of pleasure, of joy, of something positive together. So, for example, in Mongolia, there used to be two main clans, and these two clans, they were like always fighting within each other. They could not even look to each other, they were already beating each other and killing each other. So one master called Kagajitsun Tampa, he was the one that was able to make them friendship and to eliminate the conflict between them. And how he did it? First, he found a common ground between them. What was the common ground? Was the nata, the tobacco, the sniffing tobacco, the snuff. So basically what happened was that they would come and then both of them respected him. So he was a middleman that was respected by both sides. He said, you two will meet, which were the heads of these clans, but you will not talk. Because as soon as they talked, they already found something they didn't agree and they start beating each other, basically. So, you will not talk. What you will do, you will exchange your own snuff. So each one brought their own snuff box, which was something that they always liked very much. So they came, they took, and then they gave to the other their box. The other one gave the snuff box to the other. Then they, good, so nice. Oh, your snuff is good, little different than mine. And then they found something in which they had an agreement, something in which they had a common ground together. And from this common ground together, slowly, they build up new things that they were talking, and then they find out things. They were still, first of all, able to talk to each other because they found something in common. And then it came out that there was much more in common, and finally, ultimately, they became friends. And all the conflict, like the sort of inner war, finished. So, it was from that time that up to now in Mongolia, when two people meet, they exchange their snuff box. Even if you don't take snuff, you must take the box and you must make like as if you would take it, even if you don't take it. Otherwise, it means I don't want to make friendship with you. No? So, the point is that it's important for us to have a common ground, and on that common ground, that's where, when there is a positive aspect, that's from where we build it from that. And when we build strong what is in common and what is strong and what is good between us, then the rest naturally will be able to solve the other things also, which, yes, we need to talk about it, we need to deal with it, but this will be something that will come naturally out of it. Okay? So this is when we talk about the Samaya, and to keep purely the Samaya with our gurus is fundamentally important. And when we talk about keeping purely the Samaya, it's from our side, most of all. One time from one of my teachers, I received a present, which I thought I really did. Was no need for him to give me a present. But he told me it's not because of the material thing, it's because this is a substance of Samaya. Tamzigidze, which means it's an object that is there to remember us of our pure commitment to each other. To remember us of our pure love to each other. To remember us of that we have this pure relationship, and we will keep it purely with each other. Because it can happen in our life that we have doubts, we have interferences in the mind, that things happen, you know. If this danger would not be there was no point for Lama Tsongkhapa to put so much emphasis in the Lamaring about this. So it's normal. So it's something that we need to cultivate purely. Because when this first level of Samaya, which is the relationship, is pure, then the rest come easily, and it's much easier also to keep our commitments pure also. Okay? But this is also other part, which is from when between two people the relationship is pure, there is no interference, then it's easy to keep the commitments within each other. When the relationship is not pure anymore, then it's not easy to keep the commitments within each other also. Okay? So this type of relationship, this type of Samaya is also something very, very important. Okay. So we conclude here for today. Con questo concludiamo per oggi, ricordando quindi l'importanza di coltivare i nostri Samaya, sia nel rapporto con le altre persone, sia nei nostri impegni effettivi che noi prendiamo. Jitsun lame kutse rapten chi namkar tinle chochur gepadang losan tempe dreme sasumgi drowe munsel tautu ne gyur chi. Nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing Nintzen takto delekpe koncho sumke jinge lob koncho sumke ngodru koncho sumke trashishon. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.